Good evening, good morning, good everything to you people out there. This is Bongversations episode number 27 on the, what is the date today? We're
It's
in
the
March
15th
anyway.
on my side.
16th on my side. So yeah,
Yeah.
16th or 15th. So Dave
Yeah.
J is we're going to be talking very interesting subject today, the Epcot Centre in Disneyland,
Right.
uh, that was around for many years showing you the future and what the life was to become in the future. So Dave, take it
Yeah.
away.
Yeah. So
Tell us.
when we first started our shows, or kind of some of the first episodes, we were talking about Disneyland itself, and that would have been in California.
Yep.
And in so that opened in 1955. So July 7th. Or so there's that idea, or 17th. I'm sorry, but there's your idea. And then in 1966, the idea of Epcot was coined in like planning, or the idea of what's to come, but it didn't open
Is
in
Epcot and is Epcot what do you call it? Is it the word Epcot or is it a series of words? What do you call it?
yeah, it's meant to mean experimental prototype community of tomorrow.
Right.
So
Gotcha.
so now think about just the first word, experimental. So
Mm,
experiment, or the idea of experience, and then mental. So it's a mental experience that's going to be given to you. It's of
interesting.
so it's of whoa. I'm going to show you ideas of not only what's to come, but I'm going to reinforce the ideas of what was. Because if you're going to believe or fall for what's to come, you have to still be on board with what was. Otherwise, if you realize that oil doesn't come from dinosaurs and dinosaurs itself are a hoax, then all of this other stuff falls away. Because the dinosaurs and all that is also in Epcot. In some of the presentations, it tries to reinforce that oil comes from dinosaurs, that dinosaurs were real. So it tried to reinforce all these in order to bring you into the idea of what's to come. So they're like, if we know what happened before and we're telling you what's happening now, then when we show you what's going to happen in the future, you're going to believe that, or it's going to put seed. So then you have this. So that's the prototype aspect of the community of tomorrow. But within Epcot, which opened in 82. So you're kind of think about the 82 time frame, the early 80s, and how society was. So within the word Epcot, which is 5 letters, you have uh, the four interesting 4 letter anagrams that are right within there. The first is cope, so COPE. So that's the idea of dealing with something difficult. So you're coping with, and that's of course going to be this community, no matter
Yeah.
whether it be today, tomorrow, or yesterday. There's always some sort of conflict or difficult situation. Now then, you
Yep.
also have poet. Now what's interesting about poet is that's one who writes poetry, but it's also the idea of a Poe, or like the idea of a con man or a trickster. The idea,
Yes.
yeah. So you also have a tope, TOPE, which is the idea of a drunk or to be drunk. And this isn't necessarily the idea of being drunk on booze, but being drunk on the consumption of the world's sparks or light, when sparks is coming up in a little bit, but the spark or the light or the starlight. So you're consuming this and you're getting drunk on the so-called details of the world, and you become this babbling fool who witnesses to nonsense. However, the higher level you are, like the Tysons and these characters who are put in front of you, they're babbling absolute nonsense, but they're considered the top of their field in this place, in this world.
This is
Yeah,
Professor Tyson, not Mike
yeah,
Tyson.
yeah, yeah,
Just
well,
clarifying.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Either way, still babbling away. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, so you have, and then you also have coat, but not like a wearing coat, like COTE, the idea
Which
of
is
a
a
shelter.
French.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yes,
also French. Yeah.
yes, the idea of a shelter or shed, or specifically for sheeps or pigeons. Now keep that in mind. Like, so if they're going to build this Epcot, they're building a pen or a cage for sheep or the idea of pigeon. Not only is pigeon kept in a cage, but also the idea of within a con. They're calling the people coming in are pigeons. They're the actual targets of the con. So all that's within EPCOT, within the anagram. So at the beginning, when it opened up in '82, this is interesting in that keep an eye on the numbers in particular. So there was at Epcot Center there was 9 so-called pavilions that represented countries.
9 realms. 9
Right.
realms is usually, yeah.
Yeah, and the country and these countries are playing a role today, because these are the countries that if you're any other country, you're just on the fish diagram, you're a line off of these, and you'll find
Right.
out it to be you have Canada, you have Mexico, you have China, Germany, Italy, Japan, France, United Kingdom, and of course America. Now, what's interesting about that is that they were all called pavilions, except for the American. It was called adventure. So you had 9 pavilions and 1 adventure. What's interesting about that is the idea of a pavilion in the earliest form of the word in the Latin is the idea of a butterfly. And you know that from M butterfly, not to be confused with Madam Butterfly, but M butterfly, the idea of a cross-dresser, or the idea of a cross-dressing, or a con, or a deception. So then you have and also a butterfly is within Asian cultures the idea of one who floats around to different people easily.
It's also it's a transformation
Right.
image as well, isn't it?
Right. Oh yeah, that was spoken about in like the Lecter novels, and also the movies. Red Dragon. Yeah, and that actually goes into the idea of fire dragon, which we'll get into when we get into some of the so-called attractions. And interestingly enough, attractions, the idea of whose mind gets attracted to the ideas that are about to be presented. Some are quite basic, but then the one we're going to get to, or at the end, the journey into imagination is the diamond in the rough. That's really the one that has, of anything to show, that's the one that has something to show. So you had those countries. And they made up the kind of like just the time wasting part of the EPCOT. It was just kind of like, we're going to show you these cultures, and these cultures are assigned. You have the geishas, and you have all the all the cookie cutter stuff, and then you had what was called Spaceship Earth, which most people will associate with the EPCOT Center, which is the geodesic dome that we talked about 2 weeks ago. And it's called Spaceship Earth. Very interesting. And it's the history of communication, arts, and sciences. So you have this idea that it's Spaceship Earth, or something that's moving through space, which of course is reinforcing the space con and the globe con, that type of thing.
Yeah. Big cons. Cons.
Yeah, big con. So you have the dome itself, and what's interesting about the dome is that it's 180 feet by 165, and it's made up of 11,324 triangles. Now, I'm going to save you the time to do the math. So on the feet, that's your 9. The 165, that's your 12 or 3, and then you have the 11 with your triangles added up. So then you have the 9, the 11, the 311, and the 611, just like we talked about with Severance.
Yep. Severance, 100%.
Yeah, so
well spotted on that one, Dave. I missed that myself, but really good.
Yeah, so you see that there is no separation, Rick. It's just the same code, just printed in different places, being shown to you, because that's all it can be, because there's only so much that the deceptors have access to, that can use to present.
Well, they just love that. It's constant, just a constant recycling of those numbers everywhere you look.
Well, yeah,
birth
that's
dates,
go ahead.
Dates to whatever. Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
Oh, it's just everywhere. I just spotted today Jacques Cousteau 11/9. You know, sorry, 6/11 birthday.
Oh yeah, yeah, and
The
the
death date,
reflection.
just constant, constant.
Yeah, well,
Mm.
that's the math, or that's the codes that they're stuck with, because it's the idea of a reduction system. This is a
Right.
fallen system, so it's from the decimal point to the 9. That's it. That's all they got to play with. So as long as you know that, it's all of this is going to fall within there. So
Yep.
you have the spaceship Earth. You had the universe of energy, which was they reinforced the dino juice, dino juice oil, all those, and that's why all these
Can
rides
you
had to
think
go.
of anything
Yeah,
more ludicrous?
yeah,
If you were to say, I'm going to con the planet, I'm going to tell them that oil's made from dinosaurs.
right.
Honestly, I mean, now to me it's just ludicrous, but it wasn't back then.
Yep. So that was within that universe of energy exhibit, and these are basically front facing cars you would sit in,
Hmm.
and you would just sit in these cars, and you would just kind of travel along a track and just see these presentations, which were animatronic, or like, almost like panoramic, or diorama type setups. Quite
Yep.
interesting. They were well done, that's for sure. And I'll leave some links in the online to where people can actually watch a video
There should be
and
plenty
actually take the
online.
ride.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
can. There
there's
should
a
be plenty
few.
still out there.
Yeah, there's a few really well done ones. So, and then you have the World of Motion, which deals with transportation, which is pretty boring. That's, and then you had the Land, which deals with ecology, and that has a bunch of tie-ins with the Omen, being that the company that Damien Thorne
Thorn.
was running, Thorne Industries,
Yeah.
was into desert
Oh, they were
farming.
electronic. Okay, well, they also made
Yeah,
electronics as
yeah,
well,
yeah.
didn't they?
Remember when they were down showing the crops?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the idea of desert farming and desalinization, things like that. Because remember, he said that the future's in the hungry.
Isn't it?
Remember?
Yeah, they did
Yeah,
too. So maybe
yeah,
we should, next time we do a show, do
yeah.
do those three.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. And then, here's another one. And the one dealing with, before we get to the diamond in the rough, they had one attraction called Communicore.
Communicore.
Communicore. Yeah, so it dealt with communications, this, that, and the other thing, kind of, because you had this with 1947, and we talked about this again as well, and the idea of Roswell and the introduction of this of the semiconductor, things like that, all of a sudden just happening all at once, boom. You had to have this idea of
Bell Labs. We're just
yeah,
we're
Bell
around Bell
Labs.
Labs.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that ties in with Severance as well. But
Hmm.
you have to then kind of give a little history to how that happened. And so the so-called parents, who would then be the grandfathers, now are going to be given this communicore communication lesson, and then that gets, of course, passed along, because a lot of these places were used for resorts, or retreats for businesses, conventions, things like that. So then you have all these so-called men, who men and women, who would then be spreading this information as being, oh, I've learned this, I was presented this, now I'm going to spread it to you. So it's the idea of spreading the hoax story, or spreading the lie. It's the generational curse, and it happens because of these type of attractions, just like Communicore. And then that's why all these different rides, the Communicore, the Land, which is the economy or the ecology, and Spaceship Earth are still active now. The other ones we talked about are gone. Uh, the reason that they
Which are the ones that are gone?
Universe of Energy, the Dino Juice one,
Okay.
and
Good.
yeah, that one's gone. The World of Motion, the
Yep.
original World of Motion for the transportation, that's gone. Some of that's incorporated into the communication one, and then the one I want to talk about mostly, which is the Journey into Imagination. That's the one that basically gives up the game. It shows everything.
Oh,
It
excellent.
yeah. So it introduces a character, And this is on an airship, kind of floating through the atmosphere, or I should say the ether. His name's Dreamfinder. He introduces himself. He says, "I am the Dreamfinder." So
Wow.
he's giving you an I am statement, and he looks like the almost like a Wizard of Oz character, and you can. Yeah, to me, he has a real negative energy to him, but he's called the Dreamfinder, and Dreamfinder in simple gematria, basically English gematria, is 97. Now that's the same. Remember, you brought up the dragon before, dealing with
Yep.
the
Red
yep,
Dragon.
red dragon. Well, the fire dragon is the same as 97, as well as is serpent. So he's represent and also bringing into the idea of modern politics. It's the same as Save America, or the idea of the MAGA, Make America Great
Yep.
guy.
Yep.
You're the golden haired boy. So he's the dream finder. So you have this idea of serpent, or 97, which is of course reduced to 16 or 7. So that again is where your 7 is. So this dream finder character is introduced to you. And one of the first things he says is that a dream can be a dream come true with just a spark. Now that spark is
Interesting.
and that spark is the idea of a thought realized. So now and that's the one. Remember we talked about that. So you have this thought, you have this spark, and also interesting, the Walmart uses a spark as their logo, just as an example. But the spark's also in many other logos.
It's to me, it's the lightning bolt.
Right.
It's all of those,
Yep.
archetypes, satanic archetypes.
Right. And so then one of the next lines is the dream finder, this red haired, of course, redheaded, kind of this almost Odin looking character, says one little spark of inspiration. So the inspiration then is the idea of where then that inspiration came from, right? Where of what power did that thought come from? So then he introduces the next part of this, which is this character named Figment, like a figment of figment, like the figment of
Wow.
magic, something made up or contrived. And we'll get more into the word in a minute, because it's important to know kind of who these are when we look at some of the words that they use. But he says 2 tiny wings, eyes big and yellow, horns of a steer, but a lovable fellow. From head to tail, his royal purple pigment. And there, voila, you've got a figment. So the idea of
it's
royal
fairly esoteric
purple,
stuff. That's
yeah,
very esoteric stuff there.
yeah, and plus with the whole idea of the royal purple, the idea of the merchant, you already know the
Merchant
idea of
colours.
the
Yep.
Phoenician, or the Phoenician
Phoenician,
alphabet as well.
Venetian. Yep.
3G7. That's why I'm always going on about the 3G and the 7. Why the Masonic art always shows the G, because
All the time.
yeah, that's because it's a
All the time.
representation of the 3, which is a representation of the tri, which is the idea of the fallen spirit idea. Now also you have chimera, Chi-mera, the idea that like chi, the force of life, and mara, which is the idea. Now this is in reference to figment, as a synonym for figment. You have chimera, which is the idea of a fire breathing she.
Yep.
A chimera is a fire breathing she monster. Now, if you look at that, it also, just the idea of mara is chi, force of life. So what then? What force of life is that?
As Chinese chi or ki.
Yeah,
Which
chi.
is also
It's CHE or CHI. Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah, chi.
and it
So
also can be pronounced key, and that
yep.
also fits in with the word key. As you said, if it sounds like it, it is like it.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then
Yeah.
Mara, the idea, which is a version of Mary as well. So remember, you have the Catholic idea of following Mary, or Mother Mary, or Isis, the idea of Lady Liberty, which is also the idea of Lucifer in a dress, the man in the dress, the butterfly or the cross dress. So then you have the Mara, which is the idea of princess or treetop, but also it's the idea of a proverb or the idea of a sheaf of corn. I find that interesting because it's also Mara is also related to the idea of the sea, sea, like the sea or the ocean. But
Hmm.
and in spiritual term, the sea is the population of mind. You know, who is believing these stories that this character's putting out in the so-called journey into imagination. Now then,
Fascinating.
you, yeah,
Fascinating.
and you also then have it tied with Mara's tied with rebellious, the idea of a rebellious spirit. Now then back to Dreamfinder. So you get introduced to Dreamfinder with this redheaded guy and Figment,
So
which
is it,
is
sorry, is it an actor or an animation?
it's an animation. It's an
Okay,
animation. It's
got
like
you.
a puppet show. And you just ride by and it's moving too. So there's a bit of a ocean feeling to it for sure. And then you have this. So Dreamfinder's talking to you, and he's singing this between. Let's just say if the song doesn't, it's between catchy and annoying. And somehow it balances between both of those at the same time. It's really the most annoying catching song that they're singing back and forth, and that's for a
Can
reason. Yeah,
is
go
it
ahead.
any worse than It's a Small World After All?
It's close. It's very. By the end, you're really, you know,
You want
there
to go
might be.
shoot dolls.
Yeah, it's like man, you're like enough, enough. So he's talking with Figment now. Figment's the idea we just talked about is some of uh, the different ideas of a phantasm, a
Yep.
hallucination, a fancy or a daydream. So speaking of phantasm, the idea of the two pillars come into idea because I did want to go back and talk to you about before I get too far. This ride is housed in what's called by most people two pyramids or two pyramidal shapes, but they're flat on the top or they're flat on the side and it's angled. So they're cuboids or cuboids, right? Which means that they're six sides and eight corners, which means that they're basically two towers.
Mm.
And so Joachim and Boaz, it's really just a Masonic play piece. It's the two towers just put into a different form. It's much like with the monolith in 2001 being not only in 2001 but 2010. There was also a movie in when was that? 1957 called well, it was called The Monolith Monsters, where and on the cover, if I
Oh,
recall right, yeah,
fascinating, fascinating. Yeah.
and
Who directed that, or when was? So I'll have to look that one
that
into.
was
Yeah.
a directed by John Sherwood. And it
Cool.
would have been, and what was interesting about that, because I don't want to get too far off, but what was interesting about that was it ran for 77 minutes. And remember, yeah,
That's that now I have to I have to interrupt here and just talk about this 77. It features all three. You've got to really keep your eye on that number.
yeah,
It was one of those imaginary planes in 2001.
yep.
Now
Well,
in China,
go
all
ahead.
their big giant camera systems. Guess how many cameras these mobile camera things that are everywhere in China have 77 different cameras on them.
Nice. Well, I tell you why 77, if you remember to always reduce single digit, 7 plus 7 is the idea of 14 or
14,
5,
5, 5.
which
The
is
door,
senses. So that your
the
senses,
sensors.
yeah, your
Okay,
senses.
got you.
So they're always going to offer and you're being a door because if you take your two like gun fingers and you make two sevens with them, and if you turn it, you can make a pyramid. But if you turn it
Yep.
the other way, you can make a door. So it's the idea of 34, the idea of 3 into 4 equaling 7. So
All good stuff.
yeah, it's you always have to if you think about it that way, all of these will reduce to the single digit. And once you get it to the single digit, you know what's going on. But before I leave the idea of that movie, Monolith Monsters, which was just these big, towering, like freaking monoliths that would come out of the ground and fall on the buildings, and
Fantastic.
the people would turn
Never
into
ever heard
stone.
of this. I have never.
Yeah.
Hey, I just scored a book on cult movies. It'd have
Uh,
to be in there, surely to God.
oh yeah,
Sounds fantastic.
Yeah, and the hero of the story, of course, and how I in my head I tie it in with 2001 and 2010 is that his name is Dave.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, so, yeah,
Dave, and that's one of the most important names in a lot of good movies and a lot of good rock musicians.
yeah. If you watch there's a made for TV series that deals with it's a Florida hurricane, and it's a little mini series. And if you listen, one of the conspiracy theorists in it, his name is Dave as well. And the first two episodes, man, every couple seconds, it's Dave, 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 Dave. If you had to count it, so there's a there
Fantastic.
too, and you should know that. Yeah, so Dave J in simple gematria equals 42. Just so you know.
Oh well, there you go, and that's one of
Yeah,
the most big numbers out there.
yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of big numbers out there, but 77 is one of those ones that you don't hear people going on about too much.
Well,
But
except for me,
42, except for
I
you, yeah, but 42, 42's all over the place, and it was the life answer to life, the universe, and everything in
right.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Randomly, number 42 didn't give, and then they have to try and search for the question because they can't
Right.
work out. They've forgotten what the question was. But you're giving us the answers. There you go.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
and what's also interesting, Rick, is when you go through this. So this dream finder guy is on this little, almost like a balloon in a way, balloon kind of to where he's floating around, and energy for this imagination machine, he's getting it by sucking in the light of stars or sparks.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Far
Yeah,
out.
so.
That's fairly out there.
Yeah, and that's, remember we talked about the last week or 2 weeks ago we talked about the starlight being the idea of if you can get the information from the starlight by crashing it into a target, you can get an idea or a thought or a pattern. So then if
This is computer talk here, isn't it? And it's
yeah,
also the Hadron Collider,
yeah,
etc., etc. Yeah.
so this same idea is in the same ride back here in 1982. So
Wow.
and what he's doing is then he goes into mix where he says mix red and gold from autumn flowers, purple and blue from twilight hours, green summer hills and rainbows play a part. Aha, a painter's brush. Ah, a work of art. So
What 10-year-old, 15-year-old, whatever child would be getting this stuff's going into their subconscious, obviously, on this ride,
oh
because
yeah.
this is really out. This isn't your average conversation that children should be seeing.
Well,
Well,
yeah.
they wanted you to know.
So then what happened then is with Dreamfinder, and I'll tell you what happened is there was by the words used, there was a background placed into your mind for what happens next. Now you were presented something called a work of art, but now I'm going to tell you that it's to simply direct the audience into a false mindset, because the next words that come out is one chilling word like shriek or killer can spark the mind to start a thriller, and some
Wow.
more sparks like a dagger, blood, and gore, and then a mystery story. That's what they're presented with.
Do you think that the trigger word thriller would have been reused with Michael Jackson, who was in
Oh yeah,
Epcot Center,
to
and
start a
his biggest
thriller.
the biggest selling album of all time is that trigger word thriller?
Yeah, and he had
Tell me you're there.
yeah,
Tell me
yeah,
you're
and he
there.
had an animal transformation too in his video, which was interesting because uh,
Captain EO. That's E and O. That was his presentation at Epcot Center.
yeah, and then you had the in the background as you're hearing this and you're watching it, it's gonna say shake and avalanche and it's gonna say there's gonna be a word that says cat, and then it changes to bat.
Wow.
And then, so remember, we talked about the bat I want to say in the Severance
I
story.
think so. Yeah. I think
Yeah, we
I would.
talked
I
about the
think so.
bat
Yeah.
idea. So then, and so then that goes into that, and then it also goes into so as this and there's also lightning strikes, and just you go from this idea of a happy-go-lucky song into the first use of this so-called imagination power. It goes right into this darkness directly.
Well,
And Dreamfinder and Figment. I mean, what else are you expecting? Because Figment is the idea of a phantasm, an illusion, a delusion.
when I think
Yeah,
of Figment, I also get Filament, which is also to do with light.
right.
Very similar. It's very. I mean, not exact, but very similar
It's
words. Filament
it's
and
what's
Figment.
conducted through. It's what's conducted through and used to make the light.
There
The
you go.
filament is what's so that that would be the vessel or the
Hmm.
idea, and also the idea of the fig tree, and then the idea of
The
the fig
fig,
tree.
which was used
Yeah.
on Adam and Eve,
Well, it's
the
also
story of.
it's more like to me I put it in the New Testament when the fig tree is not ready or it's not bearing fruit when Christ wants it, it's not there, it's cursed.
Right.
So it's like you
Yeah. Well,
need to be ready.
I
You
just
need
have
to be
fig leaf,
ready.
figment, and
Yeah,
figlet. That's all there.
yeah, you need to be
But
ready at all times. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm gonna be in truth for the next hour,"
yeah,
and
you got to
then
be. You've got
I'm
to be watching everything that's going down.
yeah, and then and just screw around for the next for the rest. It doesn't work that way. So then uh so then that's also the idea. I wanted to make sure that the figment is the idea of the dragon or what flies around. That's what then goes into motion. So then so then the dream finders is really a characterization of the person,
Yeah.
because they're the one who are seeking these different thoughts, and they seek and they look for, they tap into whatever.com. That's what they're seeking, or they pull a book off the shelf. They're the dream finder in this instance. The figment is the idea sparked, and then that thought is put into motion.
Well,
And then and it's also through the idea of the royal color, the idea of the
purple.
purple, which is the blue and red, or the idea of stepping between the pillars. Remember, you step between the pillars when you walk into the building. With the journey to imagination is between those two cuboids. So you're walking between two monoliths, or the
So
idea of two
basically,
pillars.
Epcot Center is up there with, I would say, ancient. Um, every symbol and every, like you go through the Vatican and places like that,
Mm-hmm.
or big museums or whatever. This is like, people may not have picked up on this, but you certainly did.
Well,
That
yeah.
Epcot Center was a doorway into
Oh yeah.
into people's brains, and conditioning people to see these archetypes and imagery and words and spells put into them multiple times, because people didn't just go to Disneyland once. They often went every year
Right.
and had a re-update, or had their
Yeah. Yeah.
this imagery. Yeah. Well, you
Yeah.
did it probably. I guess you didn't go just once. You would have gone a lot,
Oh yeah. I went a bunch as a kid.
a bunch of times, which
Bunch
means
of
a lot to
times.
me.
Bunch of
A bunch.
times.
Yeah, it means a lot. Hmm.
A bunch. Yeah. It was gnarly. So I wanted to go and say on the Dreamfinder character, which is again the person who's seeking the inspiration, who's seeking, oh, what is my purpose and all this type of stuff. It's the idea of engagement of imagination. Dreamfinder equals 97. What I find interesting about that is if you look at Matthew 27:25, which is 2 plus 7 is 9 and 2 plus 5 is 7. The idea, so that's 97 in a way. It says, all the people answered, his blood is upon us and our children. So it's the idea of and I want to make sure I use the idea of this. There's someone in the audience right now I know who really enjoys when I say that. And
There's a few people out there listening to these shows. I know that much.
there's a few people that like that. Yeah. So so what's happening is, so they're calling for Barabbas, the idea of the murderer or the thief. They're calling for that delinquent mind versus the in and sacrificing the truth. They're like, I don't want that right now. I want Barbara. I want to. And then let the sin, let the blood, let the sin be upon us and our children. So what they're saying is it's quite selfish, because these, remember I told you that these become the grandfathers and the fathers who then spread these lies to their children. Oh,
Yeah.
back when I went, there was this journey to imagination, blah blah, and then they run off at the mouth. Ignorantly run
Yeah.
off at the mouth, and their kid then my dad says, or my grand, he wouldn't lie. Yes, he
Yeah.
would.
Yes, he would. Well,
Yes, he would, and yes, he did. So,
people don't like they
go ahead.
didn't kind of, well, they did, yes, they did, but whether it was a malicious way of doing it or they're just doing it because they felt better about lying to.
Well,
Well,
it's also a learned behavior. A learned behavior.
yeah,
because
yeah,
what people they get conned into going to these places as if these places have somehow have been checked for accuracy.
Look, I'll just interrupt here. I had
Yeah.
a guy I was working for many years ago, but this is the
Uh-huh.
80s. And he said to me, he'd just taken his children, him and his wife and two daughters, and flown to America. And he said he couldn't get over the Epcot Center. He said it's just the most incredible thing. He goes, you got to go. It's just incredible, you know. And I knew it as from him, because he was a nice guy. He
Mm-hmm.
just said it was just that it was out there, fantastic. This is 87. He'll say he would have been
Yeah,
there, and yeah,
right there.
back
Yep.
then. Yep. He couldn't go on about it enough to tell me that I've got to go there. It's fantastic. So whatever the imagery and subconscious chicanery
Uh-huh.
and sparks that were
Sparks. Yeah.
flipped that went out into his head, he was explaining to everyone that he talked to, you got to go to Epcot Center.
Yeah.
So it's very powerful, obviously. I mean, this
Oh,
whole.
you'll see when. Yeah, I'll leave the video link, but you'll go through. It's very well done. There's
Well, must
there's
it
just a
must
lot
it's
there.
state of art,
Yeah.
state of
Yeah.
art. That's what we have to say. The state of
Yeah.
art.
And it's but it's yeah, it's there's a lot there, and I've as well as there's a in the
Well,
mirror, and the numbers you see are 34, which of course is your 7 idea, or your
yes,
43 backwards. So it's always there. It's got to be there. That's the spark. That's the way in, because remember 7 twisted makes your door. Turn them
yeah,
around. Remember, so your senses go through the door. It also makes the pyramid. So it depends on how you're looking at it. It's like it's the idea of the spark, or the idea of wisdom. Now, is it dark or light? And to speak about spark, what I if just that word and the usage of it, and remember when I talked to you about the Save America and Dreamfinder being 97, and it tying in with Trump, the yellow-haired, the yellow-haired God character in the gold, because his
the golden
apartment's
one,
gold, so he's like the Apollo character.
very
If
much
you
so.
Yeah, so if you look at there's a New Atlantic article in, it would have been, what year would that have been, where they were reviewing a Baron or a Trump's Marvelous Underground Adventure. And yeah,
Oh yeah,
I think you've talked about that from 1893. So
yeah, I
that,
have.
yeah, so there would
Yep.
have been an old
It was a
Atlantic,
it was a novel by I can't remember his
Ingersoll
name.
Rand.
That's him. Yep.
Ingersoll something or
Abs-
other. Yeah.
yeah.
So there was an arc, or there was in 1891 there was a review of that book, and part of it says, I'll read it to you. It says the author labors through 300 pages of fantastic and grotesque narrative, now and then striking a spark of wit, but the sparks emit little light and no warmth.
Wow.
And see, so
Someone knew what they was. Someone knew how they review a book then back in those
yeah,
days.
Yeah, so also just the use of the idea of spark and
Yeah.
how spark is being used as the idea of a star or a light to look upon. So then
Oh yeah.
that's also looking back at how the character in the ride, the Dreamfinder, is picking it picks up, in fact, stays afloat. His vehicle stays afloat by sucking in the starlight
Interesting.
because because it drops each time it doesn't gobble up. It's almost like a Pac-Man in a way.
Well, look,
Yeah,
to be honest, we could
yeah,
do another thing just on these old games because
yeah.
just as Pac-Man looks like a round thing going around eating things, there's a whole lot of imagery that's feeding into
Hmm.
what you're just saying now. Yeah,
Mm.
it's like the black, and then we're given the story by the mythical black hole story,
Mm.
and by what's his name, the English professor that's in the wheelchair.
Oh,
Complete myth.
Hawkins.
Hawking. Yep, Stephen Hawking. Black hole, blah, 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 blah. This complete myth. Great to baffle the average intellect. But I have
How
a
are you,
friend that
Rick?
yeah.
I got Stephen. I got Stephen Hawking here for you, Rick. Hold on. How are you, Rick?
I'm fantastic, Steve. It's where are you? Where are you these days? Where are
I'm
you?
sitting next to Dave right now. We,
I
I am enjoying the Bongversations. Please
like the
continue.
conversation. Thank that. I will do. We will do, and we will,
Okay.
and we will be told 100%.
Thank you. Thanks, Stephen. Here's a few chips for the lobby. Okay. I kind of let me push him down. There you go. Push him out of the way.
Push me out of the way.
Yeah, he's out of there. Get. All right. Go ahead. We're clear up here.
But yeah, so his whole thing on black holes, which is these things going and swallowing stars, straight
Her
out of
name was
Epcot.
Samantha. He kept calling her the black hole, but her name was.
Oh, you just dropped out. I know you're
Oh,
there again. I can hear
oh,
you.
then
No,
I'm
it's all
back
good.
again.
Yep.
Yeah. No, he was talking about the black hole. Her name was Samantha.
Oh no, honestly, this. So this whole Epcot Center, having not been there myself, but I was always fascinated about it from this conversation I had. Plus, we get on Disneyland, the TV show, they would often play bits of it, and when you could only see Captain EO, the performance that Michael Jackson did back in the 80s,
Uh,
using state of art computer and CGI, etc. You couldn't see it anywhere else. They never played it on TV. It was just you had to go to Epcot Center to get it. So therefore,
uh,
it drew because whether you like it or not, Michael Jackson was one of the biggest stars ever, and people went there just to see Captain EO, which is what's the number? It's EO. Is it 15 and 5, 20? There'll be there. Just with the name EO.
well, well, EOS. It's also the you know,
I,
like
I just have to say you're clipping a little bit at the moment.
oh,
Yep. But if you
okay,
keep
so
talking, it dominates. So just keep talking, and it seems to be fine.
oh, okay,
I won't interrupt anymore.
yeah. So we talked about the or traction they call them. Not really. It's not really. You do ride it, but there's no quick ups or downs. It's just kind of going past the story. And what I noticed and what's important about this is that each time they had an opportunity to kind of talk about what the point is of using your mind, it always was brought to a dark place or
I
to a
bet you.
false story.
I guarantee that would be 100% guaranteed happening.
And and here's one part, and here's an interesting point about this so-called attraction is twice while they're kind of talking about imagination and going into places for creation words, because it talks about words being creation. It talks about, but what about science? It complains about science because first when the figment or the idea of when you get this thought, it's wow, numbers, letters, papers for writing, costumes, makeup, stage for lighting. right? Then it goes into what about science? So each time that the figment starts to get too far into the, what would be called quote unquote spiritual, it's brought back in by the dream finder, like the
Yeah.
gatekeeper character, to where he keeps yelling, and he'll start yelling at the end, what about science, science, and keeps repeating it. Because so
Well,
that so that the person leaving the attraction is left with the science mind, not the dreamer's mind.
not the dreamer's mind. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that yeah, the gods with the white uniforms and lab coats.
Right. So you see so even during the course of the attraction or the ride, the few minutes you're there, they're bringing you to a place, showing you something, and then taking you away from it at the same time. Because
Yeah.
most people going through there, one, won't know what they're looking at anyway, but two, won't have the attention span to remember, because there's so many flashing lights at the
Do you think
end.
this? Yeah. Do you think this is being imprinted into the subconscious of the people in the little cars?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Everything you see is imprinted,
Yeah.
even daily, you know?
Yeah.
So that's why you know where everything's at normally. And that's why you'll notice if a chair's moved out of place, because you already know where everything should be. And unless
Yeah.
someone has come in and moved or
Your
changed
chair.
it, yeah, or or even a pin on the table, you just know there's already a picture there. Where
If you've
you
got a good memory of things and you can
and
take.
even oh, go ahead.
Yeah. No, if you've got a memory of what things look like, a lot of people are just living in in a la la land anyway.
Well, they need to
These
confuse, or they need to tune the sense, meaning that as soon as you sense something's wrong, stop and look and say
yeah.
okay, and then each time that happens, the more you practice stopping and giving it time, it'll tune up and it'll focus, and you'll start to know your surround. You'll be more cognizant of your surroundings, and you won't be
Mm.
confused as often. That's not
I actually
only in the physical but the spiritual world.
and the spiritual world. I actually think there's one positive that I've ever heard from. Is it Buddhism or I think that says be in the now, not be in the now. And I totally agree with that. You've got to be in the now. Like when you're driving, stop drifting off and thinking
Well,
about
yeah,
past
yeah.
things. Be right there, right now.
Well,
And
yeah,
I think
because
there's a there there.
the past you can only
It's gone.
yeah, it's gone. You can't change it. You can have regrets or fond memories, but either one is still just it's just
You've
time
got to
being
you've got to
used.
be there, be here now. And I think that I think it's Buddhist or what it should be. Possibly isn't Christianity. They're probably where they stole it from. But it's to
Well,
be
yeah,
aware of
it's
your environment. Be
there's
aware of.
nothing new. Yeah, there's nothing new under the sun. Everyone who's teaching the truth. It's the moment of truth is now. So if you're speaking the truth, that is now.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, so that is now.
100%.
So it really just it all comes back to the same idea.
Mm. And I'll just
So
say this. Sorry, before you go on. People that
uh
are, if anyone's listening to this now, go back and listen to the first, I think 11 or I think 11 shows on episode on Bongversations, which are on truthmeets.com if you want to listen to them fully produced, or they'll be on Dave's site, and listen
semi-produced.
to listen to the story of the numbers 1 through to 9 or 10. Actually, I think we said 10 is a
Yeah,
number.
the 10 CIO. Yeah.
That was the very last one. So it's about 11 episodes before we went off into different realms. But I highly recommend you do that to catch up. Go backwards, go forwards, go whatever, but just listen to those shows.
I would. So then Michael Jackson's show you said was EO. So then that would be 5 and 15, right?
15,
So
20.
56, 11. So
Yeah,
that just so happens to be the same reduction number, which reduces to 2 or a concern, as the number of triangles. Because remember I told you there was 11,324 triangles? That reduces to 11, and that's the
Yep.
same as the EO.
There
So
you
that
go.
was like
So there's
11,
a there there.
11. So there
Yep.
well when he's dancing in front of the dome, that's the 11, 11 idea. or the 22, the idea of the 22 or the 4 or the door. So the only way to get to the show is to
Go
present
through there.
yourself here.
Yep.
So so that's the 1111 idea, and that's also a manifestation number.
I get that a lot on my phone
Yeah.
amongst all the other ones, but honestly, it's 911, 611, 116, or it's constant, non-stop. Randomly look at my watch. It'll be 116, 1111, whatever. And I do believe there's a there. That's kind of just explaining. You keep, whatever you're doing at that time, keep an eye on what you're seeing. Because
Right.
you're seeing that number for a reason, I do believe.
You sure do.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff, Dave. You're doing some. This is, again, I always say the best show. This is one of the better ones because Epcot says we're talking about millions and millions of people have been through that centre.
Yeah, just get ran through.
Yep, ran through. But but even if we go right back to the one when we did with Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, who knew? Who knew what that was about? But
Oh yeah, the Smollett deliveries, and the double fist, and the green. Remember that showed the green dragon.
Yeah, exactly.
That showed the green dragon. Now you have the fire dragon or the red dragon. So you have the go, the stop, the go, the constant to and fro idea. Yep. Because if you have metal flex and you bend it back and forth, after a while it snaps.
Yep.
So that's also the idea of the unstable mind, or the spiritual homosexual. one who can't decide which way to go.
The spiritual homosexual, with Dave J. original.
Yeah.
Dave J. original.
Yeah, so they can't decide where to go. So they want to play with both. The idea of lukewarm too. Yeah. Lukewarm. Just yeah. So there was also another movie. What was it? That I was going to say they're kind of similar to the Monolith Monsters.
Oh, that's fascinating. That's a real plus for the show, Dave. The Monolith Monsters. Anyone listening to the show, go and look at that one. I'm going to as soon as I hang up. I'll be looking up the Monolith Monsters.
Yeah. You'll see the especially since on the cover or on the movie poster. I was into looking at when I would stop at the cinema and look at the posters, because that to me, I will judge a movie by the poster, but it says they call them 100%. Skyscrapers. They called the monolith skyscrapers, and that's where your 9/11 code comes in. Because remember, at the ground zero, you have the Marriott hotel, which is that looks like a monolith. It's all black, and it looks like a monolith standing.
Yeah, so, and it's just to the left or right of the previous twin towers.
Yeah, so you have throughout the Monolith Monsters, you have throughout you have throughout 2001 and 2010 that the monolith plays, and even in it plays as a witness to an event.
Well, for sure.
Yeah, so it's witnessing an event, because they found it on the moon, so it's witnessing that event. The so-called Jupiter witnessing that event, and also at the end, if you remember, where they all started coming out, there's just untold numbers of them coming, and that's the idea of that really refers to the idea of the locus idea, or infestation of demons.
Yep.
Quite frankly,
just demons.
Yeah. So then each one then is staring at their own monolith, which is their own self-reflection. And as they lie to themselves through their own self-deception, they fall into their own. And guess what? It's full of stars. Remember that the character we were talking about, the Dreamfinder, is gobbling up stars. And then Dave, Dave says it's full of stars.
Dave Bowman, it's just full of stars.
The
very end
full of stars. So then the monolith is then gobbling stars or gobbling light. So then that's really just if you can take a man's mind and show it as an art piece, as a monolith. The stars are then what that man consumed or that woman
Wow.
consumed in the lifetime. So then
This
it's
is this
full of
is this
stars.
is this is high level
Yeah.
show, Dave. High
Yeah.
level show. Be told. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. This is one of those shows that I say, this is good stuff.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed.
No one's
Yeah.
done this before. No one's done this before, as far as I'm concerned. Tie these kind of things together.
And to tie into the Dream Finder, you know, because we're going to finish a few more, and then we're pretty much out of Epcot. We can hit the hot dog stand. It's over. And then so he'll say he'll watch minerals change in crystal shapes, and that goes back into the star or the Superman we talked about with his Fortress of Solitude, which
Yeah,
which has
yep.
the crystal formations that come up.
Yeah, they do. This
Also,
is Superman, the Superman that one with Gene Hackman, and by coincidence.
yeah, well, yeah, we talked about that, and then that also ties in with the idea of fiber optic, and the current use of fiber optic for communication, and it also goes into Tomorrowland. If you remember back when we talked about Tomorrowland, on one of the last presentations there, it shows the formation of ice, which of course is when you see it on a film, slow motion. It's the idea, or it shows forming crystals, and crystals branch out. So this is also a shared image with that goes back to the other Disney property, but it also goes back just to
Did you
the
ever see
Superman
the George?
character.
Yeah, well, they all blend them. Did you
Oh
actually
yeah,
ever watch the George Clooney Tomorrowland movie?
no,
Interesting. Look, I'm not going to say it's great, but you'll find stuff in there, guaranteed.
oh
And Clooney's one of those actors that keeps appearing in those particularly pushing the space narrative.
yeah,
Uh,
and just before you leave that, the Dreamfinder character, next thing's talk about skyrockets soaring towards outer space. Imagine yourself in an infinite place.
wow.
Yeah, so it's already given that idea of you're hanging on nothing.
Wow. Yeah. Yep. Fantastic, man.
Yeah.
Hey, did you pick up also, and I heard someone else spot this, but my
Huh.
son contacted me yesterday. He's started doing philosophy and studying movies at the moment at university. And he said he went to see this movie, Mickey 17, just come out. And it's got stars the guy that plays Batman. He also played Twilight, Robert Pattinson.
Is that the Bong Joon-ho
Yes. Yeah.
directed by?
So exactly. The Korean director who did, and I'm telling you, this is like Snowpiercer is full of like white lines in the sky. Which Dave, I'm gonna have to just to change subjects. I've got
Yeah.
white lines like I hadn't seen before today, back again. Well, no, I've seen them before, but they're back again. Like just little tiny lines, short ones, all over the place, different directions. No way is that normal. No way is that normal. But in
Yep.
this movie, Mickey 17, he said, "Oh, Dad, what's his name? The actor that played Hulk in the Avengers.
Is he the main guy?
The guy that
Robert
actually was
Patterson?
Patterson's the main actor in it, but it also stars as the bad guy, the guy that played Hulk in the Avengers movies, who not a bad actor. Anyway, the fact that he said, "Dad, he's obviously Donald Trump," and I said, "What makes you say that?" And he goes, "Just the way he's moving his hands and the things he's saying and his hair. It's obviously a Donald Trump reference." And I thought that's unusual. Hulk. Again, brought in because remember you've got Hulk Hogan next to Donald Trump in that fake shooting, or the next day.
Yeah, Mark Ruffalo? Is he the one
Mark
who plays
Ruffalo,
him?
yeah, that's
Yeah,
him.
he
Yeah, so
plays him.
So my son said that he was definitely imitating to him as an 18-year-old. Said he's imitating Donald Trump. So there's another. There's Hulk Hogan, Ruffalo who plays the Hulk, and in the there's another tie in there with someone else. There's another Hulk. There's a lot of Hulk. Oh yeah, okay. The Red Hulk, which is being played by uh, Han Solo star. What's his name? And it's new Captain America. Also playing a guy called Red Hulk, who's also a Donald Trump kind of character. So you've got this a trifecta of Hulks at the moment in mainstream media at a huge level. So maybe look into that yourself and see what you think. I just picked up on it, and I've heard another show mention it exactly the same as I was thinking. As soon as my son said Ruffalo's playing Donald Trump, and I thought, well, he's a Hulk as well.
Right.
So these narratives are being pumped out, like you're saying about Epcot Center, non-stop at a level. For those aware and awake out there, we've never seen this amount of archetypes and imagery pumped out at the same time, triggering, I would guess, a lot of the people that went to the Epcot Center and watched all of those shows back in the day.
Seeds bloom. You know, they become the, you know, oh, that's old Jimmy's dad knows.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know, and then they go listen to old Jimmy's dad, and he fills them full of nonsense about dino juice. I went to the universe of energy, and they told me the dino juice. Yeah, they had to get rid of that shit. You told, and they're like, no, we got rid.
Well, as I've said, they're getting rid of a lot of evidence of their intent, and none better to look at is the Georgia Guidestones, which just completely dissolved by mysterious explosions 3 years ago. Now don't exist. Yet it was there since, you know, for conspiracy theorists like myself from 82 or 81, it was just non-stop everywhere. You know, what are these things saying? It says it's, you know, we keep the Earth at a very low population, blah, 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 blah. It's gone now. It does not exist. Like Epcot Center, you're just saying most of the stuff's gone.
You know, I was also thinking, it was just the Figment. If you remember, Figment was presented as a purple dragon or idea class. You also have Chimera, which is a synonym of Figment, and Mara tying in with Mary. But also remember the Marriott, which was the World Trade Center obelisk. Yep. The Marriott is Mary is taken from that as well. And that, of course, ties in with ISIS and the Mary worship and the so-called, you know, Catholic, Jew, Muslim, Protestant, evangelical,
whatever.
You know, they're all part of the synagogue of Satan. They're all
it's multiple. It's multiple. There's no one. You cannot say, oh, it's them. It's them. No. There's a lot of people with the same mindset. Mindset. That
mindset, and when you say set, think mathematics. Within the mathematical 100%. Set, you're looking at what then between the brackets, put those numbers in the brackets to create the set. They all have powers or identities, but then they are all bound together by intent or having a common father. And in this case, their father is Satan.
Yeah, well, that's all.
Principality.
That's all I can say. Yeah,
the principality are the one who makes all this nonsense. The idea and the person who is represented in this nitwit dream finder, which sends out figments of imagination to what should be suspecting, but turns out unsuspecting so-called public mass. And in mass, they believe all this nonsense and, of course, fall in line, lie to their children and grandchildren, and then the family curse goes for generations.
It's exactly intergenerational curse, which is what it is. Yep.
Yeah. Because somebody didn't stop him and say, listen, Pops.
I don't believe that. Dinosaurs making oil?
Yeah.
No, really?
It's like, no. It's like, I'm not, no. I told you that story when my dad was laying on one of the pillows on the old shag rug. This would have been back in the 70s, and I strolled by the TV he's watching, and I said, that looks like a movie. And he just looked at me. And because I just kept on trucking right into the kitchen.
It
But
kept on trucking. It's like it
yeah,
did in the 70s. It kept on
yeah, I
trucking.
kept on
Yeah.
trucking right into the kitchen. But I said that looks like a movie. Yeah, it's a
But you
smart ass
can't.
kid.
This exactly, and this is people love their indoctrination. That they
Hmm.
love their school. Well, no, I didn't, to be honest. I hated
Hmm.
school. I wanted to escape every opportunity I got to get out of there. I did, and
Hmm.
I pretended to be sick more often. As I said, registered hypochondriac. I guaranteed. I just
Hmm.
Googled symptoms, or no, didn't Google. Read medical. So I've got this. I think I've got some tree condition that only trees get, but I think I've got it, Mum. So I should stay home. I think I should
So
stay home. I think I've got Dutch. I have Dutch elm disease, and I can't go to school today. And I would sit at home reading comics and Mad magazines and books. I'm telling you, I think it paid off, Dave, to be
yeah.
honest. The less school that I got, the more awake I've been over the last, 50 years.
Yeah, schooling, just in the word schooling is the idea of fish. You're schooling you're pushing all
100%.
these different students to give you a paper with these directed answers on them.
Yep.
Anything outside of the line is going to be dealt with by a numbered grade or a lettered grade.
Yep.
And then
That's what it was.
yeah. And also
100%.
in the U.S., the United States, they test a lot in the younger years. They test a lot because what they're trying to do
Find
is
out smart
get
people.
certain get them into different classes so that it will minimize um, interaction with kind of the dumber kids, or if that may, I was always in the
I,
special needs classes, so
well, you know what I did? I faked my English because my best friends were all in the lowest level of reading. So I actually went into the course. The teacher said, "How do you spell handkerchief? How do you spell butterfly?" I deliberately faked all my answers so I could hang out with my friends that were down the bottom down there. And he kind of suspected me. He goes, because I spelt one of the words correctly off the top of my head. But he said, "Are you sure that you spelled it as well?" I said, "Yes, I am." I didn't want to be up the top there because I saw them as being pushed into the up into a corner of just brainwashing them with something else.
yeah,
This is at 6 or 7 or 8, 9, whatever it was,
yeah,
primary school. Which they were doing priming you
yeah,
into
yeah. Priming the
dope,
pump.
priming the pump into a dopey, a guy that would work in the factory or work in a office or being an accountant and count corporate laws, money.
A widget.
It's a widget. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
widget. My
So
guy asked me,
Mhm.
he's all, how do you spell, this XYZ? And I said, how do you spell it?
They don't like that one.
They're like,
How do you spell it? Yeah.
smack.
Yeah, smack. Yeah, well, that's what happened. And look, to be honest, those of us that have managed to get to 2025 to the 15th or 16th of March 2025, and our brains are open, we really beat the system. We bet the system because they have tried all their tricks to get you through, and especially Disneyland, Epcot Center, TV
Right.
shows, movies, or whatever, to keep you over there, just thinking about that. Don't look at the now. And I'm saying they're using the biggest one they've used us as sex and imagery of females, or usually females. You're driving along and you say you were having a great thought about, I just don't believe, I've said this before, I'm repeating myself, but I
Mhm.
don't believe two aluminium uh, tubes could knock
Mhm.
down two giant exoskeletons. As I'm driving, I keep looking around, and luckily now I'm 60. I don't
Mhm.
get baffled as much, but there's imagery wherever you look, on bus stops, on the back of buses, on sides of buildings. Sick. There's good-looking women wearing
Mm.
hardly anything, and that's what they're doing. It's just keeping you very much like They Live, John
Oh yeah.
Carpenter's movie. It gave a lot of truth away. We talked
Oh
about
yeah.
that. And we've done They Live.
Well, interestingly enough, like even within Phantasm,
Oh, you dropped. Where are you?
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now. Sorry.
Okay.
As soon as we talk about good stuff, you drop out. I guarantee it. These
Yeah. So
Yeah,
remember
keep
we were
going.
talking about the Figment or the dragon character
Yeah.
or a
Oh,
woman?
you dropped out.
Okay, we
You,
better close up shop then for this
yeah,
show.
yeah, because they're definitely this algorithm AI thing is definitely listening to people saying interesting things and fucking up their transcripts, particularly Discord. I mean, why would they call a platform Discord or Rumble, which means a Rumble's a fight, a gang fight. Discord means you don't get on with somebody.
Uh-huh.
They're giving you the names away, all these things. But yeah, no, I think we've really knocked the. Well, you've knocked it out, and I've knocked it out with a few of
Yeah,
the comments as well. So,
yeah. Good
uh,
stuff.
Garen, good stuff, Dave. Yeah. So you want to send the bot out, and
Yeah, I'm
we'll
gonna send it out.
talk.
Okay. Cheers, everybody. Talk to you soon. Be blessed.
Hey, we'll be back next week or the week after. Be told, 1 billion %.